During your time at Lorton, who were like some of the most revered and respected people there?
I'm a student of history, so I knew a lot of guys that were there before me, such as, I got a YouTube channel, DC Blacks, and as I told you, I got the book Lorton Legends. And lately I've been talking to a guy by the name of Khalif Mujahid. His name used to be Keith Gaffney-Bey. That's Fly. Cadillac. Now my father's not no big time legend, but to me, my father was my hero. So Larry Williams was my hero. But I just mentioned some of these guys that got notable names. But more hands-on, I met a guy by the name of Mario. Rest in peace, he dead. He unfortunately lost his life in Pollock, Louisiana. We call it Pollock. And a brother by the name of Reginald Gaither, we call him Gator. And it's too many for me to mention all of them, but Gator and Mario, I met them in 4 Block. And I gotta send a big shout out to my man Ghostin, because I met him in 5 Block. So I'm gonna just stop there so we don't get too far gone on how, because I done met tens of thousands of people, but these 3 men, all of them were 10 to 15 years older than me. And they was gangsters, if that may mean something. I don't know if it means something to everybody, but it meant something to me, and it definitely meant something to Lorton. And they were the first mentors. I never considered them mentors, but now we looking back at it, they were mentors. They taught me how to mind my business. They taught me how to make a knife. They taught me how to hide a knife. They taught me how to stay out of other people's business. I mean, they taught me how to survive. So I'm gonna just stop with those 3 right there. And I mean, maybe we could get into something later, but those 3 names, I would definitely have to mention.
Did you ever meet or hear any stories about Aundrey Burno?
I was in Juvenile with Aundrey Burno. I don't really have too much good to say about Shawty. We weren't friends. He played with my food in Juvenile, and I had to beat his ass. I wasn't around him as an adult because I went to the Juvenile block a couple years before him. But I don't really deal with Shawty. I know a whole lot about him. I ain't gonna sit here and take the opportunity to trash his name on your platform.
So when Lorton shut down,
But you can ask me anything you want to ask me about him if you got another question.
Oh yeah, like you said, he had took your food, right?
He played with my food. Him and another guy, he had a co-defendant. He had a co-defendant that he ended up telling on. Me and his co-defendant developed a respect later, but him and the dude that became his co-defendant later, at this point in time, they was just friends in Juvenile. We went see and all. That was a Juvenile facility. They pass out your trays. He took one of the trays and they used to play. Juvenile places are the worst places. They're more dangerous than adult places because don't nobody follow rules. So they played with dudes' food. It was a hot dog day. Hot dog, beans, and sauerkraut. I remember the tray. And I was like 14 years old. My bad, I was 15. It was 1992. But I had a homie of mine, I ain't gonna say his name. He said, don't eat that food, they play with your food. Bro, I don't know if you have ever been hungry. I'm not gonna ask you, have you ever been in prison, but have you ever been hungry? If you ever been hungry, then you understand how I felt because I was hungry, and you're not gonna eat again until the next morning. So once he played with my food, I know I can't eat the food no more. So I beat the shit out of him all over the whole room and threw his ass all over the place and blasted his ass in the head with a chair because now I'm hungry and I'm mad. That's my story about Sean.
So when Lorton shut down, everybody got transferred to different federal institutions. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I left before they closed the whole place down. I left in 1997. What was that like for me? Man, that shit was hell on wheels for me, man. I lived in out-of-state, privately ran prisons for about another 4 years. They sent me to Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, as they did hundreds of people. It was a circus. Something like 13 stabbings, 2 murders, 7 escapes. I'm only 20 years old at the time. This is my learning process. Once they realized that some of us was there and we shouldn't have been there, they put us in the back of the prison. Just like how we in this big building right here, and there may be places in this building that's not used. They found the most unused part of the prison and called it a supermax, and they put us in this place. And I didn't come out the cell. like this may be weird. I thought it was normal then, but other people said they hadn't experienced some of these things. But they put us in the back of the Supermax pod as they was building it and making the rules, but they didn't let us back out the doors for over 30 days. That's illegal. You're supposed to come out your cell at least 3 days a week per Constitution of the United States. You're supposed to get at least 1 shower every 7 days for the Constitution, if I ain't mistaken. They could have changed these, but they didn't do that for us. And they just did a whole lot of things to us at that place right there that'd make you bitter. They could even make you racist. And from Ohio, I went to New Mexico. That was a hell of a place. I went to Estancia, New Mexico. I only stayed there about a month. They basically, we kind of, I guess you could use the word ride it. Like they kept having us locked down on the road and we kind of tore that spot up, or at least the unit they had us in it. Then they sent us to Arizona, and I stayed in Arizona for 3 years. Arizona, that was an eventful place. Like I don't have too many bad stories about Arizona. In Arizona, I was able to program. I was able to go to school. I was able to, they had a music room. I learned how to engineer music. I learned a lot of things at that private prison because that private prison was set up and they was getting money. And it was only 170 DC guys and they were trying to pacify us. They gave us Kentucky Fried Chicken on Fridays. They gave us Domino's on Fridays if you had the money to order it. But this was the only prison I ever been to where you could work multiple jobs. I had 3 jobs, although they was what we call Jeffin jobs. They was half-ass jobs. My job was I ran the music room. I ran the arcade, which was the PlayStation. And I had some other job in the unit, maybe taking out the trash. But I might have made $18 for each job. So I didn't have to pay no money to use the phone or go to commissary out there without hustling. And what I mean hustling, you know what I mean. And from Arizona, I went to Colorado USP. From Colorado USP, I ended up going to Leavenworth. From Leavenworth, I ended up going to the Virginia State System because they was holding us there for a second. Sussex 2 was where I was at. Death Row was across the street. And from there, I went to USP Lee County. And at this time, I had been incarcerated for about 9 years. I spent about 4 years in Lee County. And then I spent another 4 years about at this place called Gilmer FCI. And then I finally made parole. It wasn't as easy as I just told you, though, because I went for my first parole hearing in like 2011. I got a 60-month set-off. That's almost like a new sentence. Like a dude to go to jail right now to get caught with a gun and don't get 5 years. They told me to set my parole off for 5 years. I almost lost it. And what I mean by lost it, I don't mean right there that day, at that time, at that desk. I mean, as I had to do 5 more years in my head, I was just kind of tired and fed up. I don't know if people could fully comprehend that, but you do a bunch of time and you go see a parole board and a parole examiner, and you done everything that these people's asked you to do, from programming to drug treatment. I mean, I even took psych evaluation joints, you know what I mean? Not necessarily like sitting down with a psych. They had these programs that you go to that teach you about entitlement, teach you about things where as though you don't, what's the word they used to use in this program? Like, you won't overcompensate for who you think you are. And I don't want to get back into all that because some of the stuff I used to laugh at, but in private, some of the stuff made sense. And yeah, I ended up doing 17 years and got out. I was about 33 years old, and then I spent 10 years on parole.
So with you, having, street background and then being in prison, how, and then if they do in any way, how do prison politics differ from street politics?
Oh, very, very different. I'm gonna say something that may be crazy to other people, but ain't no rules in the street politics out here. It depends on what group you're in. You're in an old school group, or you're in what I like to call contemporary. And what contemporary is just whatever the fuck going on right now. That's young and old. But if you old school, for an example, if you old school, there's rules you're supposed to abide by. Stay out your business, stay quiet, keep a low profile, keep stepping. For an example, I got an internet personality. I got an internet image. That image is actually contrary to old school. Everything old school is supposed to be low-key, silent, out the way, not doing that. But that does not work on the internet for anybody who's saying, you know the rules while you're doing it. I ain't told on nobody. I'm doing something different on the internet, so street rules not going to apply to that. I'm going to make street rules apply to it because I ain't going to tell on you. But prison politics, Prison politics is like rearranging to its original form in a Rubik's Cube. You got to know it. You got to know people. You got to be able to read the room. But the main thing you got to be able to do is make sure that your integrity, your honor, and the credo that you live by is what it is. And what I mean by that is I see lately when people talk about things, they say, oh, if a person was in this prison or that prison, something would have happened to them. In federal prisons, the serious prisons are the United States penitentiaries. Those are what I call pens. Those are the highest level of security. Not saying that there are no men, no gangsters, no dangerous men in other ones. They are, because even men like myself, not that I'm no super dangerous nigga, I'm saying men like myself that had murder charges, some of those guys are way more dangerous than me. They make it to mediums and lows in camps. But in the right type of prison, your paperwork is like a driver's license or a passport. If you a rat or a cooperator, it could cost you your life, but it could definitely cost you a whole bunch of things less than that in the process. Where you from is very important in prison politics. I've been from DC everywhere I go. Not to break down too much, because I don't want to speak Japanese to people that speak English. So I don't want to get too deep into details about prison politics. Prison politics is basically, man, be what you say you are and mind your business. I don't think nobody can dispute that.